I think you can really see a stylistic difference between the smooth use of modeling and shading in this image and then this earlier image. So he produced this one first. Still part of the Sistine Chapel, just me later. Here is a close-up of those ignudes I was talking about. And you can see those acorns that represent the Della Rova's family. And this is a depiction of the flood. Michelangelo was supposed to work on the tomb of Julius II, but it was incomplete at Julius's death in 1513. Michelangelo envisioned a design of a huge freestanding structure crowned with the Pope's sarcophagus and covered with more than 40 statues and reliefs in marble and bronze. But Julius halted the project to put money into other things. So Michelangelo began the project between 1513 and 1516, halted it, and then resumed it in 1542 to 1545. The result of what Michelangelo produced was Moses, and that's what we're looking at here. This is the only sculpture from the original plan to be incorporated into a much smaller monument to Julius II. So this is actually no longer an actual tomb. The monument was installed in 1545 in the Church of San Pietro in Rome, where Julius had been cardinal. Moses is the focal point of the monument, acting as a stand-in for the dead pope. We see kind of a similar body type to Michelangelo's David, this muscular, idealized body, yet he has an older face, more like Laocoon and his sons. Or rather, I should say, in Laocoon of Laocoon and his sons. So this is a Hellenistic sculpture that was actually recovered during Michelangelo's era, and we know that he went and saw it and sketched it. So you can see how in this image, Laocoon is depicted with a very youthful body, very much like Moses, well, and David as well. And then he has an older face, and that is very much like Moses. So he has this kind of older face, but at the same time he has this nice, athletic, idealized body. To me, it almost looks like, David and Moses just look so similar, and their expressions are very similar. It's almost like this is an older version of David. So you may notice that, especially from this close-up, that Moses has horns. Well, Moses is depicted with horns based on a passage in the Bible. And this passage can be translated either as horns or as rays of light, depending on the context. So Moses is depicted with horns till well after the Renaissance. In this image, Moses holds the Ten Commandments. You can see him right there. And he looks off to the distance as if to talk to God. Again, the same kind of thing that's going on with David, where we kind of think that David is like inwardly reflecting and maybe communicating with God to give him the power to overtake Goliath. The details of Moses' beard are, he just does a really great job with texture here, kind of making these little curls, and then he even has it so like that the curls kind of wrap around his fingers over his chest. A little bit looser than the curls used here in this sculpture, but you can definitely see some similarities going on. And it's realistic to say that this could have an impact on Michelangelo's work because this was rediscovered in 1506, and here we are talking about something that he made as late as 1545. After Leo X succeeded Julius II as Pope, in 1513, Michelangelo becomes the chief architect for the Medici family, and he returns to Florence. He has to leave Florence in 1534 because the new Duke of Florence hated his face, didn't want to see him anymore, and so Michelangelo feared for his life. He returned to Rome, and he settled there for the rest of his life, and he continued painting, sculpture, and architecture. We're actually going to look at his Last Judgment later, but we're going to look at that in the period of the Counter-Reformation. So he's going to also, of course, have a dominant influence on later 16th century artists. This is a really great example of a Renaissance temple for the period. It's probably one of the best examples. So I want you to read about that in your book. While Rome was the main place for the arts at the beginning of the 16th century, elsewhere in Italy there were wealthy, powerful families that were also patronizing the arts. Architects designed secular structures, and painters developed a new colorful illusionistic style. They kind of moved to a more witty, elegant, and finely executed style to appeal to the taste of the intellectual elite. We have such examples here in Parma. An artist by the name of Corregio created theatrical effects through dramatic foreshortening in the Parma Cathedral dome. So that's what we're looking here. We're actually like, it's as if we're standing under the dome and we're looking up into the dome. So maybe you can get some perspective here. These are the kind of bottom layer windows of the dome, and then it kind of goes up. So Correggio had a brief career. He was born about 1489 and he died in 1534, and he produced most of his works in Parma and Mantua. This is his greatest work, The Assumption of the Virgin. It was created from 1526 or 23 to 1530. It is a fresco, and it's in the dome of the Parma Cathedral. He's really recalling Mantegna with his use of illusionism. Leonardo da Vinci also inspired Correggio's use of softly modeled forms, spotlight effects of illumination, and that light, hazy, or smoky appearance of sfumato. He also used Raphael's idealism. So he's combining all of these great masters from the early and high Renaissance to create a breathtaking personal style. So in The Assumption, we see this dazzling illusion. It's really hard to tell what's happening. And of course, you know, when you look at it in a photograph, it is always really not the best way to look at something like this. But the architecture of the dome really seems to dissolve. The forms seem to explode through the building, swirling up through a vortex of saints and angels who rush upwards. We see them floating on these billowing clouds to accompany the Virgin as she soars to heaven. When you look at this image, it's really hard to pick out where the Virgin Mary is. You actually have to look very closely. She's actually right here. You can maybe pick her out if you see that pink and blue mantle. And I have a close-up so you can see a little bit better. So there she is, this kind of light pink and blue mantle sort of hanging on there. And so she is being carried up to heaven, which is what the Assumption means, at the time of her death. The figures are idealized. They have this gorgeous clinging drapery. Maybe you can see that a little bit better here, particularly like maybe through there. And also you can definitely see the form of Mary's body through this drapery too. He depicts this powerful, spiraling upward motion of alternating cool clouds with warm, sensuous figures, and he's really playing with texture. I love the way he makes the clouds look so wispy. And then he has this contrast to this firm, yet kind of soft skin. Definitely a lot of interesting tones being played, cool colors in the clouds and warm colors with the skin. Now this painting is really just a wonderful illusionistic, force here. And it will be really influential on the Baroque period, particularly with its theatricality. It's very much like this use of spotlight. And here's, I just brought in some close-ups so you can see it a little bit better. This is really cool because it's like, you get the feeling of this vortex through these clouds, and you're winding up, and then this person is like, is flying through the air. It's like it's this whole whirlwind, and he's caught up in it, and he's trying to stay on the side, but he's just swept up in this vortex, and you can see him a little bit better there. So you can see that it was like completely accidental.